Good morning. I know, I'm late. I'm sorry. I apologize. Apologies. But better late than never. 7 minutes late I was today. And what's happening? It's a beautiful day outside for a change. It's been really cold in Southern California. And let's see, what's it going to do today? Not that you guys care about the weather, but let's talk about the weather for a minute. Oh yeah, it's looking like sunny for the next 2 days and up to 77 on Tuesday. Lovely. Yeah, raining nonstop. I wouldn't say raining. For Southern California, it's been raining nonstop, which means like it sprinkles a few times a day, but it's beautiful out. Hi, let's talk about guitar. Awesome vid with Doug, says an early viewer of the chat. Thank you. That was so awesome. He came by and no, for those of you guys that haven't seen yet, go check out the video. I guess it was yesterday that I uploaded it with Doug Pinnick from King's X. One of my favorite bands since I was a kid. I mean, I've been listening to King's X since, I don't know, 85, 84, something like that. And yeah, what can I say? I mean, the guy came by and he couldn't have been nicer. I've met him a few times in the past because he's moved to LA a while ago. So over the last 5 years or so, I've run into him a few times. But this is the first time we really got to hang out. And he was, it's just like, what a nice person. And we had a lot of good banter in the video and stuff, but also we talked a lot about other stuff, outside of it. And it's just, he feels like one of those people. It's like, wow, you feel like like a long lost friend or something, like somebody who's really, really kind, just really easy to chat with and talk to, just a cool guy. So I had a terrific time. And jamming Dogman was like, what, man, I mean, I've loved that song for 25 years. It's like, are you kidding? It's like one of the best rock riffs of all time, I think. So it was so cool. Now, one of the most interesting things that I learned was his approach to bass. I mean, when you listen to his bass soloed outside of the mix of the song of Dogman that we played, it's like an ogre coming at you. All his vibrato and like it's gnarly and there's lots of fret rattle and like he's just, and then when you drop it in the track, it just sounds like what it sounds like on the video. It's got so much character and kind of ferocity, and it's much less sort of like technically like really clean and really it's not like about that. He's like all this attitude and stuff, and it's in his playing, and I really learned a lot. Like, and he talks about it in the video about how he likes to vibrato notes and put a lot of, it's part of his tone. The tone is to facilitate the style of playing he's doing, which is shaking notes, and he's putting a lot into every note, and that's what makes it sound so cool. So I learned a lot about bass actually, in hanging with him, as you would expect, right? It's like, but it really made me think. So it was like a really great lesson for me too. What else here? Have I ever played through Tim's VH4? No, but I played through Diesel's a little bit. I think Diesel's are really cool for that one thing, in my experience, which is that, if you need when I think about like the Tool guitar sound, Adam's tone, like blending an old school Marshall with that kind of super, modern thing. I used Dave's Friedman's Butter Slacks a little bit recently, and it's not dissimilar in that it's there's a really heavy thing that you can get with certain amplifiers, and that's not usually where I live, but it's fun to play through nonetheless, and especially like the Adam thing, the Tool tone, where you combine it with an old school Marshall or something. It's just ferocious sounding. So I don't know that I would play a Diesel as like that's my tone, but if I was doing something heavy blended with a Marshall or maybe like double tracked or something, or with a Marshall-ish tone, like my PT100 channel 2 or something, it's because it kind of covers all the bases and you get this huge thing going on. They're just a little dry sounding on their own to me. Like it's a little tight, and it's just not really my style. But it's a cool amplifier, especially blended. Let's see. Felix just cracked a beer. Is it beer o'clock? Coffee for me. I still feel like I'm waking up, so I'm sorry if I'm a little foggy. We got Sweden in the house here, and we got Mike from Portland. I am late. I know. I'm sorry. I'm totally late. Ray says I'm late. 7 minutes. I had to make my beverages. Apologies. Apologies. Favorite analog delay. The first thing that came to mind when you said that was that new DoD, the rubberneck that I tried recently. It's killer. Having said that, I know, but there's one being developed that's going to be the analog delay to end all analog delays that I know that somebody's developing. I can't tell you who, but I have seen it and sort of heard early versions and stuff, and it's so friggin' cool that it's gonna be amazing. But okay, so the ones of late that I've tried are is it the tonal recall from Chase Bliss? I think that's what it's called, tonal recall. That sounds really good, and I think I'm gonna make a video of that, as well as the DoD rubberneck that I did recently. Great sounding analog delay, tons of character, really cool. A carbon copy is great. You know, they're really cool, like for low do, and they're little. On my board, it's not analog, but I have an Echoplex, the one George Tripp's designed, and it's really cool and does that basic thing. You know, tape type delay. It's really good if you guys haven't tried the Echoplex pedal. I really dig it. I use it in the video for where I show echo into amp, like in front. It's one of the videos in the Tone Secrets playlist on my YouTube. That's a really good sounding vibey sort of analogish echo. It's super rainy in Montreal, says Felix. Chill out, hang out, have your beer, and just stay warm. Don't go out. I wouldn't. Okay. Am I starting a band with Doug? No, that'd be a dream. That'd be awesome. He's got his own. They're going on tour soon, King's X, and I think they're playing a bunch of dates around LA, so I can't wait. I'm totally going. It's gonna be fun. My experience of writer's block or repeating myself musically. I have that a little bit, but I mean occasionally, you know. But I usually just put the guitar down if I can't figure out what to do. Sometimes, like even when I'm making the little tunes for the demos, you know, I'll like do something and I'll work on it for an hour or two, and I've got it like to the point where I've got a drum track and a riff down or something, and I'm like, this sucks, you know. It's just kind of, it sounds mundane, you know. And then I'll go out and get a coffee or something. And I'll erase it usually, just get rid of it. Like even though, and it's kind of sucks to say, God, really? Like maybe I should sit on it, you know, live with it for a minute, and like come back and listen to it. And then I'll go, no. Or sometimes I'll leave it, but occasionally I'll just wipe it and then go out, eat or something, and then come back. But sometimes I'll live with it and come back and listen to it, you know, like I won't erase it right away, and then I'll listen and go like, no, it sucks, and then I'll get rid of it and start over. And so generally, the thing that works for me is if something sucks, then I'm just repeating myself. And I've brought this up numerous times, but just get totally out of the tempo and groove that you were trying to work in. So like put up a new drum feel of some sort using a drum machine or drum plug-in. God, I drink these smoothies every Sunday, and I put this egg white protein in them, and it makes me belch like the whole show. I'm just like, it's like time to burp. Let's go on the internet. Yeah, anyway, sorry, I digress. But yeah, put up a different drum feel, different tempo, different drum feel. You know, like go move to a 6/8 feel out of 4/4 and just completely change like your thing. And that tends to work for me, generally speaking. I'll come up with something then that's different, or listen to a song with a different feel. You know, like put on some music and listen to something else, try and get inspired by it, and just take a little bit from it and then write something new. You know. Have I ever had a chance to try Victory amps? I have not. I heard that I believe it's the Ritchie Kotzen one. Friedman was telling me that it's really good. It's very simple, kind of a single channel sort of platform for pedals and stuff. And it's sounds really good cranked up too. I've heard it's good, but I haven't tried them personally. I know it's the guy from what was the amp company? Cornford, right? I believe he went and started Victory. So, but I don't know anything about them. You know, the thing about it is that you don't see them a lot in America. You know, I bet you'd find them more in Europe, and that's just a distribution thing, I'm sure. But like I've never seen one. I've never seen a Victory amp here. Okay. Let's see. Moving down there, I just got moved around in the chat a little bit here, so I'm figuring out where I was. Sunny in Toronto. Enjoy. I love Toronto. I might take a visit up there sometime soon, I think. Looking for another question here. Update on clinic schedule. I haven't heard anything. There was some about more, unfortunately. You know, I was supposed to maybe do one in Toronto this year, and so I'd like to look into that. And maybe another Canadian dealer. So we'll see. I want to try and get it. Maybe a Canadian thing, like, you know, maybe like Ottawa, Toronto, something like that. But I'm just talking out of my butt here, basically. Like, there was talk of that happening in June, but I'm going to be going to Japan now. So, you know, maybe if I could get something going in April, like late April or something, that would be really cool. So I've got to talk to them about that. Also, they've been talking about sending me to South Korea for a long time to do one. So I'd love to do that. And I'd love to, while I'm in Japan, at least do one, if not a couple, in Japan. Maybe sort of dovetail the, you know, Japanese and South Korean stuff together. So Doug is a killer singer. Yes, he is. He is amazing. What's my practice routine? None. I barely played this week. It sucks. I played with Doug, and then I had made a couple other videos and stuff. I've got a UA OX video that's coming out next week. I'm going to put it up on Wednesday, I think. It's a half an hour long. It's really long. So I played for that. And I guess I did. I mean, I wrote that too, and I did the thing with Doug. But it's just like I don't get a lot of chance to practice, which sucks. So I'm taking today off after we do this. I have a little bit of work to do, but then I'm going to take the rest of the day off and play for at least a couple hours. Just practice. I like to play here in this place, like as opposed to at the studio. The studio's like I go there to work and get things done, but here in this little corner over here, I can just plug into my little rig, you know, play a guitar loop and start jamming over it or something, and it's nice. Work on some stuff. Doug's side project with George Lynch is awesome. Yeah, and also Ray Luzier, who's a buddy of mine, drummer from Korn. I've known Ray for over, I don't know, almost 30 years. And he's an amazing drummer and incredible. But yeah, it's cool. It's really like an interesting mix of, you know, and I like George in that, you know, like out of his, you know, sort of the Dokken mode or whatever, going into that thing with that different drummer and with Doug. It's like, that's cool. I mean, Doug, how can, you know, if anything Doug's involved in is going to be cool. It's just soulful, you know. He's got a really cool thing that he does, both vocally and puts a lot into everything he's singing and playing. There's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of right going on there. What frequencies do I usually attenuate from guitar tracks? Well, there can be buildup in mixes of low mids commonly, or it's like anywhere from like 190 is a real common one. If you take an EQ like in a DAW and you kind of, you know, highlight like the 190 sort of area and you just pull it way up, you'll hear it just like blow up the mix all of a sudden, generally speaking. And you can lift that frequency and then kind of move it around and you'll hear, but right around that 190 to 220 sort of like, you know, it just like kind of takes over. And that's, when I hear that, that's usually what I cut a little bit because that means there's a lot of that energy already going on in there. That makes sense, you know? And sometimes you'll find like if your track is overly bloated or messy, you can clean up that in you know, some of the guitar tracks, and it tends to help. It's similar with vocals. You just have to find the frequencies that are bloated and that seem to build up, and then cut those. I'm not as adept at finding high-end frequencies that are troublesome. That's a harder one for me. The lows is easy. Sometimes when things are sibilant or edgy and annoying, I have a hard time figuring out where to cut. Need to take a lesson in that or something from a really good engineer. And the other thing you can do is shelve everything below 60 for sure, if not 70 or 75 hertz, generally speaking, unless you're, you know, playing on a guitar with a drop B tuning or something, you know, and you really want all that, you want the guitar to sound like bass. Okay. My favorite amp that's not based on the classics. Vox, Marshall, or Fender. Well, I love my Comet Concord. It's a different thing. Trainwrecks. Um, because I kind of veer more towards the Marshall thing, generally speaking, the Trainwrecks, the Ken Fisher designs really speak to me, maybe more so than the Dumbly stuff. But I love that too. It's just I'm a bit more of that rock thing, and so the Trainwreck amps for me, and they're their own thing for sure. So my Comet always sounds really rich and awesome to me. The Jim Kelley amp, which is not like anything, um, it's unlike anything else, it's completely different. So those are a couple. Okay, let's see. Guitar sim plugin or sim pedal with your own pedalboard for recording. The plugins that I really like for the UAD platform have been the Friedman ones mainly. The Marshall ones are nice too. I tried his Buxom Betty plugin recently, and I really thought it sounded great. It sounds like I cranked up like what you would want a deluxe to sound like or something. And the Dirty Shirley I've found very useful. So so it's really good. A simulation pedal with pedalboard for recording. Probably my favorite's the Ethos, which I did a video for. Also, the amplifier is really good. The little amplifier box the 2-channel. I recently turned a friend of mine that's playing bass with Chicago now onto that, and he's using it in his bass rig because he's using a total pedalboard bass rig. So pedalboard based bass rig. But yeah, so it's really, really cool. Like if it's a great sounding amp sim that you can have you can have like a clean kind of Fendery thing, and then a Marshall's kind of drive, and then it's going to boost for each. So it's actually like 4 levels of gain. Check it out. It's really cool. It sounds great. Great product for like what I think it's $2.99 or something. Pretty good. R2, R3 Lucking Nut says, some of the audio on that video was low. What video are you talking about? The one with Doug? I was wrestling a little bit with, because it was so on the fly that we were filming. I had the vocal mic in the room picking up our voices, and it was quite compressed and stuff, but when we played bass, it would just distort the hell out of it because he's got a lot of sub going on. We had the bass pretty loud in the room, actually. So it's hard sometimes when I'm doing everything and it's not an engineer in a separate control room or whatever. I'm just doing everything by myself, which means I got the cameras, my lighting sucks sometimes, and like I'm trying to make sure, like sometimes my head's cut off or whatever, but it's because I'm doing everything, trying to run the camera, running multiple cameras and running the recorder and making sure nothing's clipping, and like it's a lot to think about. So anyway, long story short, in Doug's video, occasionally I had to work with just camera audio and stuff because the actual mic in the room was distorting. So I would, if you could see the cuts in Final Cut Pro that I do, where it's like there's multiple layers of audio and things fading in and out and working just to kind of make the video work. It takes all day to do that stuff and just come up with what if I had somebody helping me, it would be different, But anyway, I make it work. It's down and dirty, but it works, right? I kind of like that, and I sort of explained it to Doug when he came in. I was like, because my room's little and everything. It's like I'm not like some guy like with a pro, but I think people like the stuff that I do because it's not like a commercial or whatever. It's like obviously some dude in his little studio just kind of making it work. Like it's very down and dirty and kind of like guerrilla style, video making basically. But there's an authenticity to it, I hope, where it doesn't seem too polished. It's obviously just me in there kind of doing it. So I think. So anyway, that's my long-winded apology and sort of half-ass apology for saying, yes, some of the audio was low, but it's just kind of it's a difficult thing to do. Sometimes I'm amazed it works as well as it does, and I'm just glad that I pull it off at all. Let's see. I loved the discussion with him because it was so off the cuff and loose and just kind of like, it's the same thing with the Tim and Pete show where we try and make it just because that's the magic shit is where it's just like 2 dudes hanging out and gabbing. Need your advice for adjusting volume live. Our singer wants us all to turn down below the drums and it sounds awful. How can we play loud around the drummer and not hurt her hearing? Well, So the thing that needs to be explained to her, I think, is that in order to feel like you're in the music and be able to play dynamically and stuff, and for it to sound like, the sound, you're playing off the sound. If you can't hear the sound, then how are you supposed to play? It sucks, it's not enjoyable, and now you're back to square one. So the drums are an acoustic instrument, and you have to settle in around that acoustic instrument because the drummer's not going to change their volume. So, and you need to be able to hear yourself. So that's just 101. So if they've got an issue hearing themselves beyond that, maybe they need to move to possibly like an in-ear rig. Singers, many times they can put in the in-ears, get a little mix going that's very comfortable for them. It's blocking out all that outside sound, and now they don't have such an issue with volume. Also, getting them away from the drums is helpful. Many times they set up, close to the drums, and then it's like you got the vocal mic, and especially if they're on in-ears, the cymbals are coming right straight into the vocal microphone. That's a problem. So somehow maybe offsetting the drummer and getting the, like the directional sort of nature of a vocal mic, getting it facing so that it's not picking up kit directly. So those would be the two things I would say. Is maybe it's time for them, if they can't deal with singing, with a live drummer and musicians just kind of settling in around the drums, it's time for them to figure out a way to kind of isolate themselves, maybe using in-ears or something. But it needs to be kind of, I can't overemphasize enough. It's like if I can't feel what I'm playing, if I can't even hear what I'm playing, how am I supposed to play dynamically? There comes a point where I'm just not enjoying it anymore when the guitar gets too low. Now, you have to work within reason, Like for me, it's like a 30-watt amp or a 40-watt amp is perfect for playing with a drummer. 30 watts, 40 watts, or, a 50-watt amp or even a 100-watt amp with a really good master volume. But let's say 30 to 40 watts. If you can, like a Suhr Badger, for example, its limit of clean headroom to me is kind of right about at the point where I would, and it's 30 watts, and with a good drummer that's not too loud, you can get a Badger like up to, with the power pretty much cranked, you can get the volume up to about 4 on the preamp volume. So run the master and the whatever all the way up the power on a Badger, and then turn up the volume to about 4. It's going to, maybe with humbuckers, distort when you lean into it a little bit, but it'll clean right up if you roll the volume on the guitar to 8, something like that, and then you can hit it with pedals for drive. That's just a great sound. That's what I did at the Iridium with Steve Stevens, if you've seen those gigs with Sebastian Bach singing. Steve and I were both using Badgers in that club, and it sounded great with pedals, it was killer. That's just a great, 30 to 40 watts. So if any less than that, it just sucks, I don't know. You have to talk to the singer, and if they don't, maybe they're in the wrong band. Maybe you guys aren't the right band for one another. I just think, like, even talking to Doug this week, what I realized about King's X was they would go into these places, especially with soundmen or whatever, and there has to be a conversation where it's like, the King's X wouldn't compromise. No compromise. Here's our sound, deal with it, right? And it's like, that's part of why they were great, because it's like you go see a show and it's, a religious experience. And Hendrix wouldn't compromise, So now, I'm not saying everybody's Hendrix and everybody's King's X. If you go in, you're loud and you suck, then that's different. But I think that sound people and singers in some degree, they need to listen to the instrumentalists. They need to listen to what is going on before they decide if it's too loud. Because if Hendrix comes into your club, let's just say, and it's 1966 or something, and plugs in and he hits the first note, too loud, you need to turn down. It's just like listen to the guy play for a minute actually, and that's, I'm sure what happened was people start playing, they go, I don't know what that is, it sounds like the world's ending, but I love it. If people just sort of backed off for a second, listen to what they've got to work with. And yeah, it's hard as a sound person, but put in some earplugs or something. Just deal with it for a minute before you tell people automatically to turn down before you listen to their band, Now I'm on to the sound people thing as opposed to talking about the singer question that you had. But I just think like you have to be really good. That should be the first thing. You have to have a good tone, and Doug brought that up in the video too. He's like, we gave them good tones to work with. Many times you go see a band, the tones suck. So then if you turn it up loud, it just sucks. If you've got a great sound, and you can really control it, now you can turn up. Now you've got the right to play loud almost. You know what I mean? And you've got the right to, if you've developed your tone to the point where it's a really, really quality live sound, now you can turn it up loud. And as long as you can control it and play well, now I believe you've earned the right for the sound people and for maybe your singer and stuff to just go, well, it's friggin' loud, but it sounds amazing. So let's deal with it, because it's something really cool is happening. I don't know. I hope that's helpful. Enough on that. Enough. What else? What else? What else? What else? Am I into the Evertune bridge? I've seen it. Too complicated for me in that, like, to have. I mean, I wouldn't mind having one around on a guitar, like in the studio. That would be cool. But I don't want to carve a guitar up and take that much wood out to have that certain bridge on a guitar, you know. I know it's a cool thing to have in the studio. It's always in tune. I'd rather have my Suhr with its new special bridge that, you know, we're working on. But that guitar didn't go out of tune either. Okay. Let's see here. Thinking about getting the Line 6 HX effects. Any thoughts? I know you like the Helix. I think it's great. I thought it sounded terrific. I loved the presets I was able to come up with for it for the NAMM show. It integrated with my amp really nicely. So, well, I put up the entire Dogman song video that Doug and I recorded. That's all we did, actually. We just played through the bridge. And then went, all right, that's enough. You know, so you heard the entire thing. Well, we didn't play the entire thing. Because it gets into the Thai vocal bridge right there, and it just kind of breaks down, and like before the last verse and stuff. And it was like, well, okay, it was, you know, 3 minutes of music starting the video was enough, I thought. What's a good phrase trainer? The Riff Station one seems really good. I use Transcribe from 7th String Media, I believe. Just Google Transcribe 7th String, and you will find it. That's the one I use. What H9 reverb do I use for overdriven rhythm? Good question. I think I have a plate or a Hall just mixed in a little bit sometimes. I can't remember. I think it's the Hall reverb that I just have a short, you know, not too, just a little bit. You know. I don't generally for overdriven rhythm have some on like, say, if I want it Stonesy, I'll put a little bit of spring sometimes. If I want it kind of more like old school, I've got a spring sound on the H9 that I really like for that, like with my Jan Ray, and that sounds cool. Buzz says, love how Doug mentioned finding frequency pockets to make his tone meld around the drums and guitar. Yeah, you kind of have to do that, like where the, you know, bass many times I find in the kind of the 8, 900, 1K to 1.5K, like in there's like a real clarity that you can get sometimes going on the bass guitar. I don't know if he finds that or not, but whereas for guitar, to me, it's like 2K. So you can bring the bass up around 900 or 1K or something, get a little bit of like poke in that, and then bring the guitar up a little bit higher, and that works. And yeah, it's all about it. Also the and I could use a lesson in this from a good engineer, but bass and kick meeting up. Finding the frequencies, you know, like the where the bass low end lives and where the kick drum kind of resides, is a thing where you kind of want those, as I understand it. I'm not an expert in it, but to have some different frequencies going on there, so that they don't kind of cancel each other out or whatever, or build up too much. Do I hear much of a difference between the old Strats and Les Pauls and newer stuff like my Yaren? Well, my Yaren is really exceptional. When builders using old wood, like that MacMall guitar I have is old wood, and it really has a thing. Like there's so much acoustic tone that comes through the pickups, and that's kind of their thing. There's something to it. I don't know if it's just the old wood or if it's just quality wood. You know, I don't know if it's a matter of the wood being old or if it's just the wood they pick or the wood that's available, right? But my old guitars, there is something, you know, to the tone of my old Strat and my old Kelley and my 335 and stuff. There's a consistent, they're good ones though. I mean, I picked them up. I've played a lot of shitty old guitars too, you know. So I don't know if it's a thing, you know, about if it's the wood being old or if it's just the wood being good for instruments. Pete, Suhr gear is missing from Tim Pierce's setup. Why is that? I'm not sure. Him and John talk a little bit now and stuff. It's just like, yeah. And John would love to have Tim playing some of his guitars, I'm sure, you know. Tim's got a lot of guitars. He doesn't really, you know, he's got PRSs and Anderson and all kinds of new guitars that he's got. But yeah, I'm not sure why he never got a Suhr. I never asked him actually. Any tips on playing slap guitar like Laurie? No, I have no idea how to do that. No tips, but she's got some good stuff on it. And so does Mark Lettieri. I believe he's got some serious slap. There might be some lessons or stuff on there, how he does some of that stuff. Am I a fan of any country music? Any favorite artists or songs? George Jones. Straight ahead, there's the bed where we lived and loved together. Love that shit. Come on. George Jones and all that old school stuff. I grew up listening to that because my dad was into country. So, it was all that old school, like 70s, like Charlie Pride and that. So I have a fondness for that stuff. The not too polished stuff, but like really well played with a lot of feeling and amazing lyrics and stuff. Anyway, she stopped loving me today. I know you have your own amp, but do you review tube preamp racks? That's from Phil Smith. I do preamp stuff sometimes, like the amplifier. I would consider any of the Helix. I would consider modelers to be almost like preamps, Let's see here. Rio says, hello, dude. Greetings from Indonesia. Your playing guitar is awesome. Thank you. Anyway, my band has released a new song. It's called Kamu Kamu. And I want to ask you here to saying something like, congratulations. Congratulations! Hey, I'm all about releasing new music. That's great. I feel like we need to keep moving forward. I was thinking about this morning, that like moving forward is really important. Like as guitar players, sometimes we look, and lately that sort of nostalgia of music, it's sort of wearing thin a little bit. Like we'll always love the classic stuff and older stuff, but I do feel like we can't live in the past too much. So hear me out. Like in 1980 or 82, 81, 82, I started getting really into music and listening to music, okay? And I was into all the stuff of the day. The Beatles had only been broken up for like a little over 10 years at that point. It's crazy to think about. Hendrix had only been gone 10 years. That stuff was still relatively new. That's literally like 2008 is to today, right? It was like, it was really, really, recent. So the music that I was listening to was anything from, the mid-60s through whatever was current, right? When I think about today, so it's 2018, when I think about today, let's take like Guns N' Roses, for example, right? That album that still gets played constantly on classic rock radio, nonstop, over and over and over again, Appetite, obviously, right? That album was released in 86 or 87, so that is 31 years ago, right? So when I think about me in 82, that's the equivalent of 1951 in 82, right? So whatever, it'd be like if I was celebrating, I'd be celebrating music from 1951 in like 1982, 83, the dawn of rock, It's like, I was more listening to stuff that was 15 or 20 years later. Anyway, my point just being, like, when we think about that, like, it's like, we can live in that 80s past only so long, 70s, 60s, it's awesome, But it's like, rock and guitar and whatever needs to move forward too. So I just think more new music being released is what's important. Like, especially for like when we're talking about a band, like, I don't mean to pick on Guns N' Roses or whatever, but would it be rad if they just knocked an album out and put out something new, right? Like, and I know that's next to impossible because of egos and all that stuff and logistics, but it's like, I don't know, man. There's this thing where it's like these bands, they used to knock an album out in, 6 weeks or a month, and they'd be putting out albums constantly. Guns N' Roses was never one of those bands. They did release a few things like up through 92, 93 or whatever, 94, and then it was like, then they were gone for, it was like it wasn't a hell of a lot of output there, right? And so, I just think it'd be great if these bands would put together some new music more. What's preventing it? It's just like, it's one of the brilliant things about Rick Rubin is I know what he does is get bands back to kind of the basics. Like, okay, you know how you wrote your first record, like with Sabbath or whoever it is he works with, like however you did it, that's what we're going to do. Like if it takes getting you guys in a little room together and, this is what made you great or whatever, let's just do that. And I wish that there would be more of that in moving forward. So anyway, coming around to the fellow from Indonesia here releasing music, I think it's really important. Like I do congratulate you on putting music out. It's not easy these days to pursue music as a career or to even, you know, just like people don't buy it as much, but it's like, so what? We need to move forward, move the art form forward, keep releasing stuff. Like I can talk, right? It's like I'm trying to get my record out forever, but I did put out a single and I am working on it. So I will have it out soon. Soon, soon, soon. It's really important though to keep making music and keep putting it out. So I do commend you. Let's keep moving forward with it. Yeah. Would I like if there was a stereo guitar amp with each side having a different sounding preamp? That'd be kind of cool. That's from Black Corvo. Would I like if there was a stereo guitar amp with each side having a different sounding preamp? That could be cool in one amp, like a blended, like maybe a 212 with two small power amps built in. It would be heavy, you know, in weight. But it might be nice, like to have maybe a Voxy thing and like a Fender Deluxe combined in one amp with two different speakers. That would be really cool, actually. That's two of my favorite sounds for anything other than like metal would be like a Vox combined with a blackface Fender. So yeah, if you could do two like, you know, 15-watt power sections or something like that with different front ends and be able to plug in and get them going, and then have a ability to maybe add some effects or something so you can get some stereo stuff going. It'd be a cool little amp for sure. It's a good idea. I like it. It just would be kind of heavy. That's all. You have to make them low power and keep the transformers small and stuff, because anytime you're talking about two output transformers and two power transformers, and it gets really heavy. Is the UAD aux worth it compared to using Suhr Reactive Load with celestion IRs? They are both great. There's going to be advantages and disadvantages. They both sound great. You know, there's with the Suhr, you know, you're getting lower cost. The celestions sound great. So you're fine, you know, with the tones and everything like that, and you're gonna save money. With the aux, the integration of the thing is really beautiful with the app, and you can store things as presets. You can spit it out and go right into your recorder, and you're not dealing with IRs in the computer and dealing with IRs on your channel in the DAW, and it's just kind of very integrated in a very elegant and easy to use way, and so that's nice. So they both have their advantages, and they both sound good. Of course, you've got all the options of the effects and stuff like that in the aux, which if you've got a DAW anyway, you got all that stuff going on, your reverb and stuff, but they do sound great. There's something really nice just about the workflow of being able to call up a delay, get some 1176 compression going, EQ out anything offending. You're going to see it in my video, actually, because I'm putting the video up on Wednesday, and I did a song where there's like 9 different tones or whatever, like I do sometimes with these things, and I show all those sounds. But then I get into kind of a very sort of off-the-cuff, informal kind of thing where I'm just going through and building a sound kind of from scratch, trying different microphones, trying different cabinets, hitting the off-axis and on-axis button, hitting the low cuts, some EQ, you know, adding some delay, adding some reverb, and I do all that and take like, you know, 12 or 15 minutes or something in the video where it's just, I'm trying to give you an idea what the workflow is like with the thing. So then maybe you can decide when you see that. So just hold out for Wednesday or something, and maybe you'll see, you know, how I'll try to give you the feel of what it's like using the thing. And it is fun and cool and, you know, very fast and intuitive and easy. That's the thing. The integration, I called it ergonomic. I don't know if it's the right term. That more refers to like when you're in a car and everything just works and fits, you know. But it feels a little like that, like where the flow is really nice. The workflow is nice with the aux. So I like that about it. Let's see. Do I think Gibson prices will become affordable for the average musician? I think Gibson, to their credit, has put out some affordable guitars in recent years, right? Like I've seen some of that US-made stuff where they sort of look like Les Pauls, but they're like the cheaper. You know, don't they have a bunch of guitars under $1,000 that are like, you know, some US-made, like, you know, they're all like matte finish and stuff like that, but like seemed like they were kind of trying to make an effort to do that. I don't know if they were any good or not. But I did see some lower price stuff. To get the best out of any amp models in a Helix or Axe Effects Live, it is better to use it direct in the PA system. That was from Felix. Felix offered some advice. I agree with that. I mean, I think it's you know, that's the best way to use the things is if you're going to use the amp models and stuff, is just use the IRs, just send that signal out to the PA and then go that way with it. Don't try and turn it into a guitar amp on stage through a tube amp or something. I think that that's accurate. I did use the Axe effects on a tour once, much like Ty Tabor did, actually, through a tube power amp and a cabinet on stage, and then I used the other set of outs on the Axe effects to go to the front of house, and so in the PA was the IRs and all that, but on stage I had a cabinet running through a tube power amp, and I liked that. I thought it was cool. So you can do that with it. Okay, and let's see here. Is it possible to get your signature guitar with a thick neck profile? No, it's just the same neck, but you could always order a Suhr custom with the similar spec, and just order a custom Suhr standard and change the neck to what you want. I just don't really bond with thick necks. The neck's not really thin by any means. Oh. It just feels like a nice C strat shape, you know, to me. How well do I know Ritchie Kotzen? I don't really know him. I used to, I mean, let me see, when I was like 15 or 16 or something, I used to write him letters, and he would write back. That was pre-email, you know. I remember it was cool. He would write back to me from Pennsylvania because he still lived there. So I'd get these nice letters back from him. And I thought that was really cool. And then I went to see him when I first moved to LA at the Central, which was the club that the Viper Room is now, before it was the Viper Room. So I remember going to see him there and saying hi to him and stuff. And now I've seen him around occasionally at events and stuff, but I haven't really talked to him forever, or, you know, I don't know. I don't really know him anymore. So I don't know him. But I have great respect for him. He's an awesome singer and amazing guitar player. Okay. What's next? Let's see. Delay. Which company? So many options. Depends what you want. So many good ones out there. Jim Kelley said, logic for using purely resistive elements in an attenuator is that they are neutral with regard to the frequency and can thus provide optimal signal transparency, better than reactive. Well, I don't know about that, Andy, because Kelley actually helped design the Suhr Reactive Load. So maybe he said that at one point, but I don't know if he still feels that way or not. Let's see here. What is the total round-trip latency of my Apollo setup? How much latency can I deal with? I don't really know. I think when I'm recording at 64 or 128 buffer setting in Logic, it's somewhere just sub 10 milliseconds, like maybe 8, something like that. But I don't really know. I don't like more than about 10. I can deal with 10 milliseconds, so I'm very used to it. But when it starts going up to like 12 or whatever, like when I'm up the buffer to 256, I don't like it. You know, I can deal with 128 in Logic. I don't know exactly what that equates to at the sample rate that I record at, though, which is usually 2448. Let's see here. Any suggestions for a drive pedal to get the PT100 drive tone? Huge fan of me and Ian's drive tone. Well, I mean, the Riot is great. The Riot Reload, excuse me. There's a burp. And the Mini Riot is really good. So you could start there and try that. I have been able to get very close to the PT100 drive tone with the Atomic Overdrive from XTS, I believe it's called. It'll get really close if you run the bright switch on the PT100 on. So if you have a Fender that's got a bright switch or a bright cap, you can use the Atomic Overdrive into it and get a really, really good. You need to run the bass and treble on about 5 and the mids down to almost like 9 o'clock. And then with the switch in the middle, I think, the little mid-select switch. And then I could get a really, really close drive tone. In my video called How to Use and How Not to Use Distortion Pedals, I think I used both the Plexitone and the Atomic Overdrive, and I kind of demonstrate using both of them. Both of them will do a pretty credible job through the channel 1 of my amp. So, yeah. How often do I do refrets in my guitars? Almost never. I haven't had a guitar refretted in, because I play a lot of different guitars, so it's like, that's probably why, because I'm not beating up one guitar forever. And then the Suhrs are stainless steels, so... You know, who's the best unknown guitarist that I know? Mark Goldenberg comes to instant mind. Also, Ted Green, excuse me. I was going to say Tom Green. What an idiot I am. Ted Green, who was an instructor of mine. You know, he's a legendary, like, amazing, ridiculous guitar player. Ted was probably one of the best musicians I've ever gotten to sit in a room with, and he was almost like savant level of. I would take lessons from him at his place in Encino, which was legendary. If anybody's ever been there, there's probably a couple people out there that took lessons from Ted, I bet. But you'd go over to his place, and it was like wall to wall and floor to ceiling books, and you could barely move through the place. There'd be like little pathways where you could walk through this apartment, and there'd be guitars and amps and necks sticking out and stuff, and it was crazy. But then you'd sit down, and he would sit there cross-legged on the floor and play and be teaching you these concepts and stuff, and he'd just be playing the whole time. And he was the kind of guy that could play a Beatles song, like, Eleanor Rigby. It goes like this, and he would just play it, and all the parts would be there, like all he'd be like sort of reharmonizing the whole thing or whatever, just as he was going. And it's not like he was just playing it from memory, so no two times would be the same, but it was beautiful. He could remember it all, and he'd be like, this goes like this and this and this, and it was almost overwhelming for me actually, because it was so far beyond what I could do on the guitar that it was like I'd almost leave depressed sometimes from the lesson, go like I don't even know what like that was, be like watching somebody on really another level. Anyway, Mark was a student of Ted's, and Mark is an amazing guitar player. Plays beautiful. Go check out like Mark's. He's got an acoustic record that's gorgeous, and but he just plays all this devastatingly beautiful stuff all the time, and he's a little bit more of a behind the scenes kind of guy, but he's done a ton of stuff, like written songs, produced records. He played guitar with Jackson Browne for a long, long, long time. And he's just a really, really wonderful musician. So Mark Goldenberg, check him out. Incredible. It's not rock and roll, he plays beautiful stuff on guitar, but he's probably the best unsung guitar player that I can think of. Do I use any outboard effects such as UA 1176? I have an 1176. I don't use it that much anymore because I'm lazy. I just use the plugins. What audio interface do I use to incorporate them? I use the Apollo, the UA Apollo interfaces. I have the Twin and the Apollo 8. I'm getting a new one, I think, the new version of the 8 pretty soon. But yeah, I do have an 1176. I just don't do anything kind of analog that much anymore when it comes to compression and stuff. I mean, I have nice mic pre's and stuff, but then I'll go in and I'll use usually plugins for compression and stuff. It's just faster and easier. Have you ever played a Gibson scale double humbucker Telecaster? No. Maybe once. Did it sound like a Les Paul? Yeah, it'll probably sound pretty close. I think I played one of P90s once. You're sort of almost describing a Gustafson. They look like teles built like Les Paul. Fano guitars. Ever played one? Oh, just a little bit, not very much. Who are my biggest influences? The Beatles, The Who, Van Halen, AC/DC, all that good stuff. And then, Stevie Ray Vaughan and Joe Satriani and Steve Vai. That was kind of the era I grew up in. It was like a combination of sort of 70s old school classic stuff and then whatever was happening in the early 80s. That's where I started. And now the people that I listen to just get blown away by are the folks like Landau. But I also really, I love The Edge and Johnny Marr. I love these days and stuff like that. So I love all kinds of stuff. Okay. Do you top wrap any of your Les Pauls? I've never had luck with that. I tried and I just don't get it. Couldn't get it set up right. How do I build and organize settings on my pedalboard? I have a standard bank of like 5 sounds or whatever, like clean all the way through dirty, and I have some different effects and stuff that I can kick on within any one of those presets. So they're sort of like my generic presets or whatever, my generic 5. And then beyond that, when I'm building presets for songs in a set, like if I'm going on tour or something, I'll just start with one of those 5 and then tweak as I see fit, and then store it in another location once I get all the stuff dialed in, delay times and specific effects and stuff. But more and more and more, I lean on those 5 because it's just faster and easier. It's like, can I get away with playing this song with just one of my standard ones? Yes, most of the time. A lot of stuff that you might obsess over the perfect, like, whatever little thing. And then in the house, in like an arena, it's just, like you know, you watch the DVD later if a concert was filmed at the tour or something. You can't hear the shit. You know, it doesn't equate to anything that meant anything. So, well, obviously different if you're like, well, I have to have a univibe on this solo or whatever. And then it's different. You need to make the preset really, but you know, you can get away with using a few sounds live, I find, and then only when you really need a specific effect, you know, you can make a new preset. What do I like for bass effects? Oh man, get that new Doug Pinnick pedal, put it on a pedalboard and be done. Yeah, I don't know. The bass players like my friend Jurgen, who plays in Government Mule. He has some effects. He uses an old Boss. It's called the heavy metal pedal, the black one with the orange print. He uses that for distortion. He always sounds ferocious. And he has some reverb and echo and a phase 90 on his pedalboard and a volume pedal. And he does these things sometimes where he like fades in these swells, and it's amazing sounding, you know. So that's kind of what he does. Most bass players I know, they have some kind of drive. They have some kind of octave effect, like low octave effect. You know, occasionally they'll have like a, you know, some type of ambient thing. Like, you know, H9 is good for a bass player because it's like, it's a jack of all trades. Compression sometimes, you know, nice compressor is a good thing. That company EBS that I did a demo of their little brute drive, which is great little Marshall pedal. Just did it last week. They have some really nice bass pedals. I see a lot of bass players using their octave pedal. Unity gain question. Do you have any advice for finding or maintaining unity gain when switching between guitars? A good boost pedal will do that. Like the Suhr dual boost, for example, you could use because it's got 2 boost settings. So if you got some low output guitars and some higher output guitars, you could have some different gain settings, you know, kind of to maintain. But some of the beauty of it is the different gain settings of your guitars. You know, like sometimes you want to switch to a guitar and not have it so hot because if your amp's set like a nice edge of breakup, you can plug in a lower output guitar and get a great clean sound, for example. So you pick up the Les Paul and now it's driving the amp, and you know, use that for specific things. Sometimes I don't want to make them all the same. That's kind of like almost the Billy Gibbons thing where he has, you know, EQs and things to make all his guitars sound like one guitar, but I don't think I would want to do that for me. Cheapest analog delay, get a Danelectro Echo, remove 1 resistor, solder a pot in place of that resistor. Done. That's what I did. What's the pot for? That's from Black Corvo. What's the pot do? Does it change the tone or something? So you can make it sound analog. Thoughts on attenuators? After watching your super reverb video, can that be achieved? That's from Gregory. Do you mean can you get that at a lower volume? The best way to do that would be, for me, as of late, was using the power station from Fryette. Is a great way, you know, to get your amp cranked into the sweet spot and then be able to control the volume. The load and preamp setup that a power station gives you is the best way that I've found to do that. That preserves the tone. The only thing is a super reverb 2 ohm, which really limits your choices. I mean, you could probably use a 4 ohm load and get away with it, which the power station has, but your amp's not going to be like working optimum. You break up a little bit sooner than it's supposed to, I think. That's probably safe. Relatively safe if you're specifically talking about a super. Robin says, previous question was about recording only. Do you use any outboard effects, and what audio interface do you use to keep them patched into your recording setup? I don't. I really don't, dude. I don't have a patch bay or anything, and it sucks. And so when I move, which is going to happen later this year, I'm going to do a patch bay and have things normal. And I will have it to the point where, to be honest, I've got an 1176 and I never use it because I got to physically go and plug in the cables, right? Which sucks. So that's kind of, you're like, how do you get around that? I don't right now. I don't actually have a good setup for that. So everything's just hardwired into my interface, which means I kind of use whatever's plugged in, which is right now my BAE Neve pre's. I've got, you know, hardwired to 2 mics out in my live room, And so the BAE 1073 style, those are going into a couple of inputs on the Apollo. And then I've got the output of, reactive loads and stuff like that going, like my Suhr reactive loads going into one line in on my interface. I've got the aux is feeding the SPDIF digital in on my interface. And that's it. I've got that stuff hardwired in. I just use that. So as far as like other analog effects in the studio, like the 1176, I would have to go and physically patch that in, and I can't be bothered. I'll just pull up a plugin on the channel, to be honest. But obviously, I want to get around that pretty soon and be able to have a patch base that I could use it. And it would be easier, because I would like to use it sometimes. Like, be nice to have on acoustic guitar or vocal, recording stuff like that. Andrew says, very intrigued by the new analog delay that I mentioned. It won't be out for a while, but it's amazing. Really, really great. Moving it forward, so to speak, while still having all the tone of the old stuff. Adam says, been going through a few bridge humbuckers on a Les Paul Super Distortion / Alnico Pro 2. Those are very different. Gibson 57 Plus. Any recommendations? Want something with a little push? Well, the Super Distortion is more than a little push. It's a 14K ceramic magnet, so it's going to have that flat kind of hard distortion sound that I have come to realize is Van Halen 1, I think. But / Alnico Pro 2 is going to be much softer sounding with cool mids. 57 Plus is going to be that overwound but not unequal coils kind of. I like the 57 classics. I think they're good, but they can be a little just sort of flat sounding to me, a little boring or something. I want something with a little push to it. With a little push to it. I have to think about that. Like a hot, maybe. I mean, the Thornbucker Plus is 8.7. I don't know if you would refer to that as a little push or not. Probably an Alnico 5. Maybe some of you guys out there have a good recommendation for that. I really like the Motor City Second Degree Black Belt, which is an Alnico 5. It's the pickup that's in the guitar that I use occasionally in Van Halen stuff. Like, the black guitar I have with the tortoiseshell pickguard in the Floyd, that has a Motor City Second Degree Black Belt. It's not hot, but it's probably like 9K or something. I don't know. And Alnico 5, and it's just hot and bright and kind of has that, when I want it to rock and kind of do that thing, that Van Halen thing, it works well. Having said that, I like I was saying earlier, I do think that the early Van Halen thing has a lot to do with the ceramic magnet 14K pickup, the specifically Van Halen 1 tone. Okay. Christopher says, good morning. Love the opportunity to ask you a question. I play and practice alone in my living room for hours, really having fun and getting better. Any recommendations for playing with people? Just go out to jams and stuff, find some local jam nights and get up and play and make some friends. Before you know it, you'll be out and rocking. Have I tried 9.5 gauge strings? Yes, and I quite liked them. I did. I think it's cool. 9s are a little too light for me, except for a certain specific sound, which is tuned to E flat and kind of doing the Van Halen thing. I'd love 9s for that, but for most of what I do, I like 10s, but they do feel a little heavy to me. Like, I'm a wuss. Good univibe pedal. I always forget the name of the pedal, but it's the one that I've reviewed that's from Croatia, that's on my site, and it's a Vibe Machine. Is it the Vibe Machine? I think it is, actually. Really good, I think, but I'm not a univibe expert. When people are tweaky about univibes, like the people who really know the old ones, they're very specific about what they like. But that one from Croatia, there's a red one is the original color, and there's a gray one that was an update. That I've got videos for both of those on my channel. I think it's called the Vibe Machine. Sounds awesome to me. Has as many options as you could possibly want in a vibe. And then having said that, I don't have one on my board, so I use the one in the Mobius, and it sounds good to me. Purists will poo-poo, but I think it's terrific. can I explain exactly what being a session musician requires? How do you become successful at it? You have to be insane. No, well, sort of. You have to be really, really good. Okay, so probably the main things to being a session musician are patience, and you have to be versatile. It would be helpful if you could read and be good at least at reading charts. And you have to kind of, the guys that I've seen that are really good at it, like Michael Thompson and Tim Pierce, they tend to be kind of first takers. They, at least whatever they come up with on their first take is pretty damn good. And they kind of can hear parts and layers, generally speaking. Those are some qualities. You have to, probably learning a lot of different types of, styles, and being aware of the guitar parts that are on a lot of different types of music. So, like, listen to Michael Jackson, listen to rock stuff, and listen to, you have to be aware of all that different, like everything from funk through, so, some of these guys are stylists that kind of made their way with a certain sound, um, certainly it seemed like Steve Lukather he did all kinds of stuff in the 80s, but it seemed like people would go to him a lot for burning solos, for example, or certain guys were really known for their, when we think of Nile Rodgers or something, what was his sound, kind of, people would go to him for the funk thing, the funky kind of, small tight voicings of chords, doing his thing, it was, so, I would say just, being really versatile, being able to read, being a nice person, the kind of person that other people want to hang out with, being the kind of person that's on time. Have I ever met or spent time with Guthrie Govan? Yes, I have. And speaking of Victory amps, somebody asked about Victory amps earlier. I hung out with the guy that is Victory amps and Guthrie one night. So Guthrie and I found that we had a mutual friend in a person named Summer Rose. And Summer is a singer that I was in a band with for a number of years. And Guthrie had seen Summer at some point in LA singing somewhere in a club or something. And he loved her singing. And she has this really cool, she does Janis Joplin great, stuff like that. And so she was still living in LA. She lives in Nashville now, but she was still living in LA. And Guthrie was like, Summer? And I was like, yeah. And somehow we realized that we both know her. So we went out one night. We saw Summer play at a pub in Studio City called the Fox and Hounds, and it was with the Victory Amps guy, whose name I'm forgetting right now. But we got like pretty much shit canned. So yeah, I got basically like relatively wasted with Guthrie, and that guy can drink. And we had fun, like pub, drinking, talking, watching Summer. And he was great, he was a lot of fun. He's very, very nice guy, like super, super kind, high functioning, highly intelligent, and then he plays the guitar, and I just want to cry, so it scares me. Can a Suhr Reactive Load handle the SL68 on full tilt? Yes, no problem. Especially if you run it, I would recommend if you're going to run the SL68 on full tilt, run it in the low voltage mode. It's just a little bit easier on everything, the load and the amp and the tubes and the whole 9 yards. And it sounds better to me anyway. Reinhard Wasserman says, kick is good in the 70 to 90 range, and I dig bass at 110 to 200 hertz. If it's double the frequency of the kick, corner frequency, it should be nice. That's good advice, Reinhard. So you're saying that double the frequency of the, that's okay, I'm going to try that myself. So if you're boosting 70 to 90 or 100 hertz, try for the kick drum, try 200 hertz for the bass guitar for a low end boost. That's interesting, and I will try that. Good advice for people out there. Okay. Ethan says, check out Jude Gold instructional for slap guitar. That's right, he does do that. That's from Ethan Ricks. Excellent. Any tours coming up? Yeah, Japan, coming soon. I'm gonna go over there. Did I hear the Johnny Cash, Chris Cornell song? I have not actually yet. Tim actually mentioned that he has everything he needs. He also mentioned he gets approached by a lot of manufacturers, and he tells them that very thing. Yeah, I would say that's true. That's from Buzz. Buzz is because somebody was saying, why doesn't Tim Pierce have a Suhr? And Buzz is saying Tim mentioned he has everything he needs. He also mentioned that he gets approached by a lot of manufacturers, and he tells them that. And I think that that's probably pretty damn accurate. He has at least 40 or 50 guitars and stands in his studio, and he has every amp under the sun and effects like crazy. And yeah. You know, how much can you use, right? At some point, the focus, when it with that, it's a little bit of the issue with me not practicing enough guitar, and it's an extraordinary quality problem to have, I know, but because I'm constantly trying new gear, because it's kind of my job that I've made of like making demos and things like that for people, constantly gear, and trying different things, you don't actually play as much. You're tending to tweak more, you know, and learn. You're becoming almost like a product specialist more than a guitar player in some ways. So I think maybe Tim tries to limit that and keeps his focus on having the guitar in his hands and playing. He offered a little gem of advice in the Laurie Basilio Tim and Pete show recently, where he said, you know, I tried to make sure I had the guitar in my hands all day. Whatever you can do to do that is imperative when it comes to having a career playing guitar. And I thought that that was terrific, terrific advice. You want to be a session musician, by the way, that would be the thing to practice. Find a way to have the guitar in your hands like a lot for at least, you know, a period of years, you know, at least a few years, and then try and bust into that session world. You'll just be, you know, you want it to be second nature, picking up the guitar and playing and have a really wide berth of knowledge. And there's only one way to do that, and that's practice. Okay, I've gone way, way far back in the questions here. I'm realizing because people are talking about country music and stuff. Like that was 45 minutes ago. I was talking about that. Have you played the newer Fender Strat Elite 9 to 14 radius? Have any fingerboard, truss rod wheel, maybe next guitar? As I never owned a Fender. I haven't, but that sounds like nice player kind of features. You know, compound radius, all that good stuff. In my opinion, this is from More Guitars, can record companies bring back the days where people actually buy music? People will pay $6 for Starbucks, but not $8.99 for an album. Well, no, I don't think so. I think that what they have to do is move towards the streaming thing is the way everything's gone. It's already happened, basically. You can still sell physical copies of some things, like signed copies and things, but it's going to be in small units comparatively, right? Most people want to stream their music. So what has to happen is people have to pay for that. You know, the streaming services basically have to pay fair rates to folks somehow, and nobody knows how to do that. You know, there has to be some compensation for musicians. It just ain't what it was. You know, it's like if you sell 50,000 copies of an album, you know, as an independent release, it's really damn successful. You've made some money, you know. If you stream to, you know, your album and it gets played, you know, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's going to be a fraction of what you would have made had you actually sold the physical copies. So it's I don't know what the answer is. There's other ways to make money with music, though, besides just selling it. And that's what people have to explore. You know, we have to forget about the old thing. It's never coming back, and we have to move into something new. Unfortunately or unfortunately, it's fortunate in some ways. Okay, this is Bellan says the problem is not many people want to hear the new stuff. They just want to hear the classics. Maybe the older people do, but the younger people, which is slowly, you know, we're getting older and older and older, right? And as you know, kids are coming into music, they've got no problem listening to. That's what I've found. People like it when I put out new music. You know, they don't just want to listen to my old record. Just me and my little microcosm level, right? You put out new songs, people are interested, and you're gaining new fans. So I think old bands, they relied so much on their old catalogs that sold them millions and millions and millions of copies. Yes, and I understand. You still have to put out new music, even if people aren't. Paul McCartney does it, you know. And he does it like, he's like, you know, public be damned or whatever. I'm going to make a new record and I'm putting it out. And that's it. And, you know, God bless him because he's like trying to move forward even if people don't want to hear it or whatever. You know, it's like the guy keeps making new music. And maybe someday people will go back, you know, after he's long gone, maybe people go back and revisit some of those solo albums that he put out that they hadn't paid attention to and be like, wow, there's some really good stuff on here. You know, when I think about McCartney, like the Chaos and Creation in the Backyard album, that song Jenny Wren is one of the best songs he's ever written. You know, it's right up there with Yesterday. It's beautiful, and it's like, if people don't want to pay attention, we'll screw them, because it's beautiful. You know, the other song, Friends to Go, on that. Waiting for your friends to go. You know, I can't remember I think that's what it's called. Uh, anyway, some great stuff on that record that he put out, and it's great that he keeps putting out music and stuff. Got to keep it moving forward. I think that, you know, it's a quality problem to have when you're so big and your early records were so huge that maybe, you know, people, that's just what they want to hear, you know, because they have such a bond to that music that it's almost hard for you to put it. But also, check this out. If bands just had kept putting out albums, I don't think people would feel that way. If, you know, like during band's heyday, nobody was just relying on, like when Van Halen, you know, moved to Sammy Hagar or whatever, and it was 86 or whatever, everybody wanted to hear that new record. And then when the next one came out in 88, everybody wanted to hear. People were like, I just want to hear the old. People were actually still excited to hear the new. It's like something to do with when you go away for, you know, when you're a huge band and you go away for a long time and then you come back, you know, you risk this thing of being like, now you're a legacy artist. Maybe the goal is to never become a legacy artist by just keep continuing to put out music, you know, like don't ever allow yourself to get, you know, to this long period where you don't put anything out. Now when you come back, people just don't want to hear the old stuff or whatever. I don't know. I'm just talking out of my ass, but okay. What are my favorite Celestion IRs? I like the mixes, and I like the Greenback 412, for example. So if I was going to just recommend one to you, I would say use the high gain all mix of the Greenback 412. That means they're blending a 57, a 121, and a 421 into one IR, and you've got this mix of 3 microphones, and it just sounds great. So that's a great place to start. Use the high gain all mixes of any speaker that you would think you might like. Lynchback in a 412, it sounds great too for kind of a greenback alternative. The open back 212 with blues, high gain all. The low gain mixes sound a little bright to me unless I'm doing really, really crystal clean stuff. Like with drive and distortion, they sound a little bright to me. So I use the high gain ones for everything, which are just a little bit darker. Okay. Moving down here. I'm going to go faster. What's my favorite clone pedals? I love the Archer. Tumnus is good too. George Harrison's son, Dahni Harrison, recently released an album that is very modern. I would love to hear that. I didn't even know that. It has a ton of guitar, but it's heavily processed and doesn't sound traditional. I'm going to go check that out. Thanks for telling me about that. That's from Reed Little. I didn't know that he put out a record. I want to check that out. Reed says, I love it. It might not be for the classic rock crowd, but that's okay. You know, he's a young guy and he should be doing his own thing and moving forward. Okay, how's the UA demo coming along? It's done. I basically finished it last night, and it'll be up this week. I'll put it out on Wednesday of this coming week. Really, really happy with it, actually. And it's super long. It's 31 minutes long, and I don't care. I'm just going to leave it like that. Okay. Let's think about trying a Suhr Reactive Load. I have an old tube preamp, Rockmaster, no power amp. You don't need one. Suhr Reactive Load won't do you any good. Reactive Load is meant to take the load off of a tube power amp. So as a preamp, you can use it without and just go direct, or you know, it's not going to work for you. Have I tried the Supro Statesman head? I have not, but I like what the Supro is doing from what I've seen, and I would like to try some more other stuff. It's very different than obviously my amps. I have an interest in trying other amps that are really different than the PT100, which basically covers all my Fender Marshall needs. But you know, like little amps that, you know, little combos and stuff like that, it's a totally different sound. So that's kind of why I have my AC15. It does a very, very different thing that you just can't physically get out of an amp. It's so different, like the PT. So let's see. Bertel says you ordered the radial tone bender elevator thanks to my test event. I really like that one. It can adjust the amount of buffering. Yeah, it's nice. Like you can tune to, it's got the high end kind of control on it, the drag control. You can warm it up a little bit if you find a buffer gets too bright for you. And Steve says he loves Dirty Town. Smoking, thank you. Appreciate it. Todd says, thanks for having Doug Pinnock on. Love that you're giving the guys in King's X some love. You know, and Doug really appreciates it as well. And I said to him, you know, we were emailing last night, and he said, I love the video. And he was like, thank you so much, man. You made me look good. And I'm like, you don't need my help to look good. You were awesome. And I said, I love the off-the-cuff kind of thing. It feels great. And I said, check out the comments in the video. They're great. And he said, I love the comments, you know. So a lot of people were saying, you know, I love King's X so much, and this is great. And, you know, and he was really, I think it kind of, it probably warmed his heart a little bit to see all that love coming for his band, you know. Love for his band. It was, I think he was really stoked about that. So I think it felt really good to do that video this week. Okay, reactive load with no power amp doesn't make sense. That says Mark. Yeah, that's right. You don't need it. You can just use your Rockmaster without it. Remember those Rockmaster preamps, the one rack space? They were pretty good, actually, for what they were. 3-channel preamp, right? Like tube preamp, as I remember. 90s. Let's see. Hey, Pete, a Kemper for low volume practicing or recording, or should I wait for something new and upcoming from Suhr? Well, it's coming soon. I had a good meeting about amps this week, by the way, with Suhr, and we're good stuff moving forward, definitely. It's not going to be too much longer, I promise. Let's see here. Have I ever played Antelope audio gear? No, I haven't. I'm just moving down. If anybody likes Greta Van Fleet, this is from Benjamin. He says, have a listen to Graveyard from Sweden. Good vintage sounding band. Okay, that sounds cool. Check out Graveyard from Sweden. Let's see. How do I know which one? Which one what? That was from Steve. You'll know. You'll just know. Just believe. 2 friends got the aux box and absolutely love it, says Randy Wilcox. I tried to order one. Most places are out of stock. I think it's been very popular, yeah. It is really good. It's, you know, typically, the UA doesn't screw up, generally speaking. They kind of hit it out of the park most of the time. Okay. Do I have any issues with the aux getting non-master high watt Marshall tones to sound right, like some guys have been saying they have in some forums? I haven't used it that much for that, to tell you the truth, but no, not any more so than any other. Maybe I've got to try doing that more. Let's see. It seems fine. Okay. Thomas from Long Beach says he's a big fan. Hi, Thomas. Thank you for being here. Cato says Greta Van Zeppelin. Yeah, really. Greta Van Fleet. I mean, cool, we got to give them props because they're playing real music. That singer is great and stuff. And I just want them to move away from the Zeppelin thing a little bit. Here's my alarm. I set an alarm today because I'm gonna give it about another 10 minutes and then jet, because a lot of people have been asking for a index. So I'm going to go through and index the questions and stuff like that in this video. And I said, okay, if I do that, it already takes, you know, a fair amount of time out of the Sunday to do this. So, and I enjoy it, don't get me wrong, but it's like if I spend another 2 hours indexing, it's like, whoa, all of a sudden this Sunday live thing has become like a 4-hour event. So, because I have to go through and physically do it, like listen to all my BS and you know, and then put in the timestamps. So I said I'll limit it to an hour and a half, and then I'll try and spend half an hour, 45 minutes doing the index. And so, bear with me. Nashville or LA? Well, I don't know. I still love LA. Nashville's cool though, but I'm sure the folks in Nashville would say, don't move here, stay out of here, because a lot of people, you know, the rate of people moving to Nashville is crazy, like 100 a day or something I heard at one point. It probably just can't absorb all those damn guitar players. Anyway, Greta Van Fleet. Yeah, I wish they would do something similar to kind of like, yeah, move away from the Zeppelin thing. A little bit. Just a little bit. Yeah. Let's see. Because they're obviously good, you know. Have I ever played a semi-hollow with single coil pickups? Like ES330 style or whatever, I guess. I mean, anything with P90s like that's going to be cool. My Tressart is semi-hollow. It's metal, but it's got a tele bridge pickup. That counts, I guess. Okay. What's my favorite interest besides music? Well, I love travel, and I'm really into Japan, and which is fortunate because I like to go there, and I go there to work. So I'm working on Japanese right now, and I could spend hours just working on that and studying another language. And that one, for some reason, I'm really interested in. I don't know why. So that's kind of something I'm interested in besides music. It feels good to use a different part of my brain, study something else, and the language just, you know, it feels good. Like it reminds me of being a kid in school or something. It makes me feel younger. Okay. Nashville's so crowded, says Chris. Yeah, I believe it. I believe it. Probably too. It's probably kind of over the top now, right? Lots of people from LA are moving there. It's more rock friendly. I think you can kind of be anywhere now. I mean, I don't know. I don't know that there's a location now where you have to be to. Nashville becomes the next LA. When Nashville becomes the next LA, I'll have to move, says Chris. Yeah. I mean, there's still a lot of tours and stuff that are based out of here, you know, out of LA. I mean, the Nashville thing also, the Nashville style of touring, if you get gigs with those artists that are based out of there, it's different, you know. They tend to work Thursday through Sunday, and they don't really leave for like weeks or months at a time. They go out for weekend hits. And then you kind of get paid by the gig, I think, so you're not getting paid for travel days, and it's just a different thing that I don't really want to get into. I prefer to leave for like an extended period of time and be paid a weekly salary. Okay. What brand of strings do I use? String gauge. I use 10s, Ernie balls, and generally I use the RPS, which have reinforced plain strings. Originally made for Kelley tremolos, but they tend to work and prevent breakage on all kinds of different types of guitars. Let's see. Asking for anyone that will listen. Cheap, good setup for tube amps and practice with headphones only. Probably a Katana, right? Or, oh, you're saying a tube amp. And you want to use a tube amp with headphones. Cheap. You ask for a lot. Tube amp. I don't know. Anybody got any suggestions? Tube amp with headphones. There's no, like, you're gonna have to get a separate headphone amp and speaker situation. That's why I'm saying, why don't you just use a modeling amp if you're gonna play with headphones, and don't beat yourself up too much trying to put together a rig that is difficult, you know. Let's see. Austin still has a great blues scene. Not sure how it compares with Nashville, but you can see artists like David Grissom every week in clubs. I would love to see David play in a club down there. He's so great. Okay. Let's see. Is Suhr coming out with a reactive load with speaker modeling or IR similar to the aux? I don't think that they would ever do anything exactly like the aux because it's so deep with the DSP, you know. But we'll see future stuff down the road that, you know, I'll say that probably would, you know, down the road, if you see anything from these companies that have got reactive loads, they'll probably try to incorporate something simple as far as some speaker simulation or something like that. You know, the aux is fairly, you know, you'd have to be a company with extensive, you know, kind of resources when it comes to developing DSP and apps and that kind of thing, in order to go that route. So it's almost better, you know, and you're seeing it reflected in the price of the aux. you know, that's R&D. I mean, it's like the $1,300 that they're charging for it. Yes, it's an expensive unit physically, but there's also, you know, that you're seeing the R&D and stuff you have to charge for software too, right? It's not just a physical box they're charging for. So what I'm getting at is, you know, the Suhr making a great reactive load, very simple. Now you go add your own speaker simulation and then they can offer it at a nice price. That's a very valid sort of business model for a product like that, I think, right? Because you know, a lot of people are like, everybody asks the question, well, is there an advantage over getting the aux over using the Suhr reactive load with celestion IRs, right? And it's like you're seeing the two different kind of schools. One is kind of all things, and the other one is like, we're going to give you this one thing and do it extremely well, and then you can go add these other, you know, whatever speaker sounds you want. It's a little bit more of a modular approach, you know. You can think of it like as opposed to building a, you know, maybe it's a little bit more like making a pedal as opposed to a multi-effects processor, you know, like, you know, great guitar pedal. Like, we're going to make the best overdrive distortion pedal in the market or whatever. And then you go add your own reverb and delay and stuff, because that's a whole another, you know. And then, of course, they can offer that great overdrive or distortion for less. No different. Reactive load does that one thing really well. And then you can go and add your own, you know. Okay. Moving down here, I'm just going to take a few more. I'm going to get going pretty soon. It's 12:33. I'll go to 12:40 and then split. Ted Green is not unknown, says Buzz. I would, yeah, you're right. He's kind of unknown. How many people out there know Ted Green? I mean, it's like, and don't feel ashamed if you don't. It's like, if you ever studied in college, you've probably heard of him. Yeah, but that doesn't really count as him being like a household name, you know. Or Mark Goldenberg. A lot of people have heard of Mark Goldenberg in L.A., but it's like, you know, he should be more known, you know. I think Ted, you know, it would have been great if he put more music out. That's the only thing, because he was such a brilliant musician. It's like he would have been a really, you know, it's unfortunate there's almost no information in music, you know, like musical information out there. You know, there's a few things on the internet, on YouTube and stuff, but that's it. Like, you know, one of the videos of him playing, there's like, he played at somebody's wedding, and there's a video of him sitting there playing, and that's like one of the most watched things of him on the, you know, it's like, it's just a shame there wasn't more sort of official releases and stuff. Okay, I got way back. I'm going to go down to the bottom now of the chat and kind of back up a little bit and just answer a few things. So Leon Barron said Scott Henderson told him about Ted Green. Yeah, I believe that. Yeah. And Bellad said never heard of Ted Green. Yeah, not a lot of people have, you know, but he was a genius. Chord Guru, admittedly learned about him at music school. Yeah. Chord Chemistry is his book, and he used to call chord chemistry chord casualties because it was so deep and intense. Yeah. Okay. Gabe King says, Bruce Willis 2024. God, no, dude. Come on. Bruce is a good harmonica player, by the way. But can he just do his version of acting and stick to harmonica? We don't want him for president. No, we don't. I did see that movie got really shitty reviews. What is it, Death Wish or whatever? He's a good harmonica player, though. I've seen him play with Government Mule. Okay. Favorite music-related podcasts? Jude Gold's podcast is terrific. No Guitar is Safe. It's awesome. Luke says Ted Green's album is still one of my... Yeah, he put out one record, I think. That was it, right? And it's unfortunate that... Thunderlid says the new Locking Bridge progress. I know that they're working on it. Trying to see how, you know, just availability. I don't really have an update yet on that. Favorite noise gate pedal, where do you run it in your chain? I've been using a noise gate in the studio sometimes because there's so much damn electromagnetic interference that comes in the pickups in my studio space. So I use it's the TC one. I can't remember the name of it. I'm sorry, but It's pretty good. I find it works quite well. I hate gates. I really do, but I have to use one in there, and it does a pretty good job. It's fairly unobtrusive sounding, you know. Okay. Do I think that Ted Green really wanted the fame, or was he happy? I think Ted was a really happy guy. He is asking. Buzz was saying, do I think he wanted the fame? He didn't. Definitely didn't give a shit about fame. Was he happy doing what he did? I think so. He struck me as being a very content educator, and he was a sweet, sweet guy. You know, really, really sweet guy. Ever played with Frank Stallone? No, but I have met him in guitar stores because he tends to hang out in guitar stores. Um, so let's see. Okay. What am I playing next with Laurie Basilio? I don't know. I'd love to play with Laurie again. Laurie guested on a song on my record though, and she killed it. Amazing tone, amazing phrasing. There's going to be a video of it. So that'll be coming out pretty soon. Okay, just a couple more things here, and then I'm going to jet. It's 12:38. Let's see here. I'm all the way at the bottom of the chat and just waiting for more. Do I sing? Yes, a little bit. I do. I don't consider myself a great singer, but I sing, you know, as a background singer and for a job. I sing. You know, if anybody asks me, "Do you sing?" I say yes. That's how you get gigs, and then I do it when the time comes when it's required. Sometimes in Japanese. Yaru nara imasu kane? I'll do it if I have to. Zeni wa yo, so ja hoshi kedo yo. Suhr Reactive Load and the Blue Box. Have I tried? Yes, it's great. The Blue Box is a speaker emulator box built by Blue Guitar, BLU Guitar, and it's a really, really great thing to pair with the Suhr Reactive Load. Terrific. My favorite cabinet in the Blue Box is it's I think the 71 G12M, which is 55 hertz greenback style, you know, bass cone greenback style speakers. I believe it's labeled 70 or 71. It's about 3 o'clock on the dial on the speaker selector. Killer, great greenback IR. Sounds just great. Could use that happily for tons of stuff. Did I master the audio on the Suhr factory stuff? Are you talking about that's Jason Hobbs. Are you talking about the mixes I did of the Ian Thornley show? Yeah, I used my standard, you know, like the Slate, what's it called? FL8 or whatever. I can't remember what it's called, but it's a Slate limiter. And a little bit of EQ and compression, just the standard kind of, you know, get the level up there and make it sound nice. I was really happy with how that stuff came out. I think it sounds really good. Okay, gonna go soon, you guys. Are there any unknown musicians that I feel should get more recognition? Well, those are the ones that I kind of brought up. The Mark Goldenberg. Check out Mark Goldenberg. If you do nothing else, check him out. And my good friend Holly Henderson, that I'm making a record with. She's awesome. She's going to be a big deal. Why do I think the offsets have gotten so popular the last couple of years? Just probably people want to do something different. So, you know, Jazzmaster, Jaguar, or something. Just kind of another design. You know, it's like something else, somewhere else to go. I almost feel like it's being driven more by manufacturers than it is by guitar players. But favorite restaurant in LA? I have many, but I mean, I'm a huge sushi fan, so you know, I'll give you my favorite sushi places are Katsuya and Asanebo, and really like a Roha for just a kickback sushi place in the valley. It's been there forever. It's always good, solid. But what else? Yeah, try those. Okay. Time to go, I think. I'm going to take one more. David Jurgensen says he's curious about the PT100. Steve Stevens uses his Friedman SS for distorted tones and your amp for his clean tones. He uses mine for some distortion tones too. I think he's just got all the channels on his Friedman and Suhrs kind of, you know, for specific things, but he tells me he used the dirty sound on my amp too. So, you know, you got a dual amp rig with multiple channels there. You could, you know, probably find some uses for, you know, maybe, you know, like a lower gain but similar sort of Marshally crunch. I'm just guessing, but it's like, you know, he could do certain things with the PT that maybe are perfect for some songs or something, you know. So anyway, all right, I'm gonna split you guys. This has been most enjoyable as always. It's time for me to go get some lunch. And yeah, aux videos coming out this week, so I'll put it up on Wednesday. And please go check out the Doug Pinnock from King's X video if you haven't seen that yet, and share it with your friends if you don't mind. I would really appreciate it. And what else is coming up? Nothing. I don't know. That's all I got. I got to finish my record, and I got to finish Holly's record, and I've been saying that forever, so I got to get all this stuff done. More videos, more good stuff to come. And hey, thanks for joining me. I'll see you guys again soon. I'm going to go make the index for this now. Okay. Take it easy. And over and out.